Yeah.
Hello, 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 everyone. Awesome. Um, Hello, hi again. Nice to see you here. Okay, so this talk is about Agile also in public sector, and with us is Zorica from Saga. And of course, as usual, you can ask the questions on the bot, or of course after the talk, and enjoy the show.
Okay. This is a bit weird for me, but I'll get used to it. I guess from time to time you need to get used to new things. So let's go from the beginning. Okay. Hi, once again. My name is Zorica Grba. I come from Saga, and I'll be here presenting the Agile methodologies and Agile concept that we have implemented within the public sector projects within our country and within our company. In terms of what you can expect or the agenda, I will be giving you a short introduction about our company, after which I will explain briefly about the public sector and some usual details regarding Agile versus Waterfall, and then I will give you a description as to how we have implemented the Agile vision within the public sector and the project of software development that we are currently working on. So let's begin. A little bit information about ourselves. This is just to give you our CV, so to speak, so you know why we have the credibility that we have to speak about the subject. Saga is the company that I come from. It's a company that exists on the Serbian market for nearly 3 decades, and we are not exclusively software company. We are what is known as a system integrator, which means that we do implementation and designing and maintaining and consultancy for various different technologies. And on top of that, we do software development. Majority of our software comes from public sector projects. And we've been doing the public sector projects in software for about nearly a decade or so. As you can see, we have about 350 people. We are spread across the region, and due to our major shareholders, who have been our major shareholders for the past decade, we are present worldwide. I'm guessing that you have no problem understanding me if I'm speaking too fast, or there's a way that you don't understand me. Please raise a hand and I will adjust my speaking voice accordingly. Is everything okay? Okay. When it comes to our software power, or the people who are behind the projects that we deliver in software, we have a software division that is divided in 2 teams or 2 functions. The one that is turned and organized in such an order to do the public sector, and the experience and the values that we provide in the project are the experience that I will be sharing with you. And we have a private sector software development team that deals with the private sector, like the name says. You can see that we have 30 plus software developments and IT engineers, the technologies that we do, and some of our core projects that are either closed successfully or are currently in the process of being implemented are, as you can see, National Employment Agency, the Treasury, or the Customs Office. These are not our only customers. As you can see, when we talk about the market, we have the public sector as the pillar of our customer base, then we have the finance and banks, the telco sector, and all of the others that we cannot put in those silos, but we just keep them in the other category. And that's short for introduction, so I hope that this is enough information for you to get a grasp of what we actually do and how experienced we are in software development. Mind you, on the previous slide, I don't know if you've noticed, but about nearly 30% of the Serbian software market share is ours. We try to aim to improve that number every year, and we hope to succeed it. But we shall see. All right. This part is about digital revolution. Why is it here? You may seem that this is not a part of this presentation, but in reality it is. And I will explain why. You see, the digital revolution that we are currently living, or someone may say this is the fourth industrial revolution, has brought significant change into the way how people do business, or all of our customers are doing business. Just think about yourself and your experience, how you did, I don't know, whatever you did, photography, music, publishing, how you did it 20 years ago, how you do it today. So the world is changing. The market and the new digital technologies are really pushing us, or pushing the businesses to strive to achieve new levels of innovation and money. And where does that leave the public sector? The public sector is one vertical that is a rather specific one. When I ask you what do you think about your government or your public sector, depending on the country you come from, you will say different things. For Serbia, these are the things that you might be thinking about when you say this is our government or the public sector. There is low level of digitalization. There is no competitors because the customers of the government are the citizens. It's not like there's a market for governments to rush and to race in order to obtain more citizens. So they don't need to strive for excellence, or they didn't need to up until the digital revolution. There is a strict hierarchy. There's emphasis on processes and procedures. There's the legislation barrier. There's a poor staff quality. There's bureaucracy. So there's procurement processes that are from, let's say, a different age. And all in all, it's not a pretty picture, or at least that user experience when you deal with the government. But the digital revolution, believe it or not, is one of the primary causes that will push the public sector to bring more digital services and to be, well, more up to date, to bring them to speed like the rest of the businesses. And you see, everyone, the public or the government, has realized there are two major pushing strengths, pushing them toward changing. One is the digitalization. The digitalization means that you have new era of citizens. I don't know if you know, but you have, your time is divided for before Christ and after Christ. Now, in the digital revolution, we have the generation that was born before iPad and after iPad. There's significant difference. Believe it or not, I don't know if you have kids, but my kids think that everything comes with a double click. Whichever device they have, they think it's an iPad. You tap it double and you get whatever you need. And the citizens of that kind are going to be majority in the next couple of years. So there's that push. You have citizens who expect to live and to do their transaction with the government and the public sector the way they're expected to do, like with another business. So that's a major push for the public sector. Then you have the pressure, which every business can relate to. You need to cut the costs. You can cut the cost if you go with the digital services. So the governments or the public sector, whichever you prefer, have embraced that idea and realized they need to push forward. And last but not least, there's loads of money and financial possibilities, because improving in the digital era means potential, means money and investing in software projects. So therefore, public sector and software development actually are two teams that will make a lot of money in the future. So let's speak about Agile. This was kind of like an introduction as to why would you do business with public, even the government, because the government has its regulation and bureaucracy and whatever, and why would you want to do software development in the public sector. Before we speak about Agile, we must address the existence of the waterfall method, or the methodology, as it has been, and it has been used in software development. As someone described it, waterfall is a non-iterative or linear way of software development, where everything is nice and neat, everything flows from one phase to another, kind of like a waterfall. When you look at it, our infrastructure division could say that this is the way they do their business, because it's plain and easy. You get the contract, you know you have to gather the requirements, sign them off, then you do the architecture of the system, sign it off, then you do the implementation, Then you verify it with the customer, you have the quality acceptance, and then you go into the maintenance. And that's pretty much it. In software development, this approach has its merits. First and foremost, this is a structured approach. It's a project manager's dream. Who wouldn't want to know what milestone they have achieved? So it's great. You have comprehensive documentation. Yay, right? And primarily, these kind of projects, if you do them in that kind of way, you're in sync with the contract. Because the contract, and specifically in the public or the government contracts, you are in sync because they have those phases. And why would you want to do it otherwise? So the reality of it is, or our experience, is that the waterfall method has its disadvantages, and we have felt them deeply on our skin. You see, you have to understand, at least by our experience, public projects are complicated, not to say huge. They are complex because it usually consists of procurement process and budgeting that lasts for up to 12 years, by which time when they do get a RFP out, the requirements are either useless or they are way out of what they actually need. You need to replace large systems. You have a lot of customers, a lot of requirements, and you have possibly 1 or 2, 3 vendors. So in a reality where you have such a complex project, where time frame for delivering of the project is not days or weeks, it's months, sometimes even years. You have like 3 months worth of requirements. That's okay, if only they would give you the sign-off, which they don't. We had the experience where we had a project, the government project, where we had like about the total time frame for the software delivery was about 15 months. The requirement phase was 3 months. By the end of the 3rd month, we couldn't get a sign-off. Why? Because they couldn't put their signature on. Okay, we said, fine, just give us the extension. They couldn't, because they need to spend their money just in the time frame they projected. To cut the long story short, we finished the requirement phase 12 months after the initial contract sign-off. By that time, we only had a couple of months' worth to do the actual product. We realized it pretty quickly that we couldn't wait for the requirement phase, and that it's okay to have a contract that says, okay, you have these phases, but in reality, I can't deliver the project that way, and we started doing things differently. So we couldn't do it the waterfall method, even though the contract stated so. Another thing for the requirements, requirements usually change. In the public sector, you have a lot of people with a lot of desires. You can have a situation where the customer is not really clear what they want, or they need to put some requirement, which is a nice to have just because some boss wants it. Or we had situations where we actually delivered the project. They said, okay, fine, you did what the contract says. The requirements are there. We can safely say that you have fulfilled your obligation. But you know what? We will not be using this. It's not usable for us. It's just not what we wanted. And we got paid. It was a win-lose situation, if you will, where we were the winning side, which is usually good. But when you think about it, we have created something. We put a lot of effort into it, and nobody uses it. What's the point in that? So we decided that we shouldn't do software development like that. We should adopt Agile visions. Let's talk about the Agile. This is just a brief theoretical thing that everybody can look up on the internet, what the Agile stands for. It stands for values and principles. It's not a methodology, it's not a framework, it's just a set of goals, principles, and values that everyone who is involved with software development will value and use as guidelines to produce a better quality software. So what we value more is individuals and interaction over processes and tools. Working software over comprehensive documentation. By the way, That doesn't mean that you have no documentation. It just means I value one over the other more. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation. Once again, the contract needs to be there because without the contract, there's no doing business, especially with the government. And responding to change over following a plan. Okay, we can deliver that. I will not go into these 12 principles right now. I will go back to them once more. But let's see. Agile values and the public sector. It looks like this is Mission Impossible, right straight out of a horror movie. It's like you're going to kill yourself by doing things agile with the public sector. Why? Because when you look at it, every value that Agile stands for is, or except the working software part, seems to be in direct fight or correlation against what the government is. Because remember, you have the famous contract. Contracts are always fixed price, fixed time, fixed scope. You have the bureaucracy, and you have again, a waterfall-like way of doing business. The public usually doesn't have experience with agile vision at all. And they have, well, they used to have zero willingness to even consider being agile. They just wanted their product doing the project performed as if you were performing, I don't know, implementation of network equipment, that sort of thing. We, fully aware of the specifics of the customers in the public sector, decided that this is the way to go. So let's go back. Why we decided. First and foremost, we are engineers. That means we like making stuff. Apart from making stuff, the stuff or the product needs to be usable. We really value our time and effort spent into making something and giving it to customer and making it usable. So for us, working software is a must. We want to have better quality software. We want to have user satisfaction that is way better than it was, because if we achieve those two things, then we have recurring business, which means our account managers and executives go, yay, more money. And we have success and privilege to work in large-scale projects that not many software companies can do. So those are the driving factors. And let's see what we embraced fully, what we didn't embrace fully, because there's one thing as a vision. Reality always kicks you in the behind. So you need to go by what reality stands for you. So, individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Not fully. You need to know who's doing what and when, because it would be a total anarchy. So we do have some processes and tools in our software development that help us to be more effective and produce more quality. Working software with comprehensive documentation, yes, it's a big yes for us, which doesn't mean that we don't produce documentation. It's just that we have come to a point where working software is the solely measure of progress. Nobody even reads the documentation. It's there because you obviously need it, because you don't know who will be in your team. Someone needs to take over the system and knows what the implementation consists of. So yes, you need to have it, but while you develop it, the only measure of progress is working software. Customer collaboration is a must. We realized pretty soon that we need to engage our customers, because if we engage them throughout the process, from day one or time zero till the end of the project, then they see that we are putting a lot of effort, their interest in the project rises, they are really willing to give us and provide us with everything they need, and at the end, we have more user satisfaction and more viable and usable product. Responding to change over following a plan is somewhat of a necessary evil, if you will. We're not too cool on implementing changes, but we realize that that's a must, and we adapt as quickly as possible. So we have adapted, and we use Agile, but we use it in, let's say, a time frame or scope that is acceptable for us, from our perspective, and what we can offer to the customer. And so we did just like that. Let's go over to this. The big issue was the contract. That was our biggest obstacle. Because like I said, the contract, you cannot eliminate it. Some people say that the best type of contract for Agile project is time and material. But in public sector, that's never, ever going to be a case. Do you know why? I'm guessing not. It's this simple thing. How would you feel? You are the customer of your government. How would you feel if you heard on the news that our government has signed a time and material deal worth of several $1 billion with the consultancy firm X and X to do some software project? So they'll pay what they do and they'll deliver what they deliver. That kind of thing usually brings problems. The contracts need to be fixed, at least fixed time frame, fixed price. So that was a big obstacle. What we realized is this. For every project, I'm guessing you know this, there's a project's retrospective. I don't know how well you can see it, but if you look, the customer really needs that tire swing. How they explained it is that fancy letter, if you will, in between what the customer needs and what the customer actually said they wanted. There's a huge and vast opportunity for suppliers to adopt Agile techniques and to deliver the project on time, on budget, with the constraints of the contract. I heard some presentation, we didn't do the evaluation ourselves, but it is believed that up to 30%, if you do your Agile estimation quite right, there's about a 30% of buffer within your estimation that you can provide your project being Agile. You can do and adapt the changes just by looking and doing the must-haves instead of the nice-to-haves. And that was our way. Once we realized that, we were more comfortable in doing the projects in the public with the Agile approach. This is pretty much what I'm talking about. These two things, the contract, will always be fixed time and fixed price. You sign the contract and you have this product, whereas the scope and the features are explained. The scope and features in the project become, with the functional decomposition, they become use cases. That's the area where you can be Agile, because between the fixed thing, which is contract, and the product, you have the use cases. If you see them like 900 use cases at the beginning, in the middle you get 1200, then you will do the 900. If you optimize yourself to the 900, you will do the 900, there are must-haves. If you have 1200, there are must-haves, then you estimate it wrongly and your project goes down the drain, at least from your perspective, time and effort and price. So that's the major thing that we discovered and that we always rely upon. The second major thing is the customer collaboration. If we engage the stakeholders from the customer side throughout the project, then we will have less problems explaining what is need to have against what is nice to have, and how to be Agile and to deliver the project to the end and still have the flexibility. In the bottom line, you need to give the customer what they need. If you have the time and resources and the budget to do what they actually want, you will do it. If you don't, you will give them what they need. That's the quality software. And that is the process that helps you being Agile throughout the project, which lasts for a year or two. If you do that, you have a better chance of providing a quality software, better user satisfaction, which means, again, recurring business and money. So you always work on separating must-haves and should-haves from nice-to-haves. That's your only way, because the procurement process only values the lowest price. And you need to be flexible and agile to deliver that. You have to also be quite sincere with your customer, which means this maintain project transparency. When things go bad out of proportion, you need to be honest. As soon as the customer realizes that you're on their side, you will have a much better user rapport and you will have a much project success rate. So, Agile and Saga. This is how we do it. When we sign the contract, what we do is start a planning phase. We gather all our teams with the customer and discuss what is the RFP versus what we actually need to do. So we go into that planning stage where we address what is the contract, what we want to achieve, who will do it, what are the subsystems that need to be implemented, because remember what I told you. The system that we implement in the public are huge. They consist of, the current one that we're working on is 1,200 use cases, like 9 subsystems that are logically put together. So this is the first planning phase that we do. We look at the system as a whole, we match it to the RFP, see what needs to be done, and put an estimate, not a deadline, but an estimate project plan, because you need to have a plan, like it or not. You have a fixed time frame within which you need to do your project. So you set up like a frame plan as to how will you do the things you do, which things you can do in the parallel, and how many people will be joining us in the team. This is the only. This is that phase in a little bit of detail. So you have the kickoff, which you have the contract, the scope and time, and deliverables. We usually have, as the end result of this planning phase, some sort of a document that customer is okay if they can sign it. It's okay whether they sign it or they not, because we don't expect them to. It's okay if they sign it. It's okay if they don't sign it. It's just a reference point for us. This is how we will do the system. Then we go into something that is known as functional decomposition, where we actually bring all those subsystems and see how many use cases are we dealing with. Our team consists of business analysts, who are the people who actually are always at the customer site and are gathering and making those use cases. They are our connecting point from the customer to the development team. They do the functional decomposition and they go for the subsystems or the subsystems in parallel. I don't know how many, depending on how many analysts we have. They do the functional decomposition and then we see a little bit better the product that we are about to make, and we know more details about the product that we are going to take. So the business analysts do the use cases, they talk to the development team, and the development team starts working. While the business analysts are doing their thing with the customer, the development team does not do nothing. They prepare the architecture of the system, they do the environment, or even if they have time, they finish up some other projects that they may have to do. And then we go into the releases and planning of each release. Every release has the plan phase, the iteration 1 or 2 or 3. We usually give out on 2 to 4 weeks. We provide a new iteration and we measure the progress as we go. If there is a mismatch within the expected time frame and what we are currently doing because of any unexpected things, then we regroup and either find more resources or we find a way between the must-haves and the nice-to-haves so we can still be within the resources that we planned and the budget that we have planned. That will be in a nutshell, so to speak. What we realized is you need to have your stakeholder present at all the times. It is important to address the RFPs because that's the point where you introduce the Agile approach. By accepting that you will not follow strictly what RFP says. Instead, you will do what the customer wants because you are very interested in what the customer needs and you want to give them happiness and a good product, you address it. In the intermediate phases, you have releases and iteration depending on the velocity that you're taking, so I don't think I should explain anything. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. And the final phase is hopefully where you finish it, you have the done product and the customer is happy. Based on what I have said right now and the experience that we have, these are the key pillars that you should address. So once again, I need to emphasize that you always address the RFPs and what you will do for the customer. In that way, you bring in the customer towards you and they can have a better understanding of what you want to achieve, and that is that you hold their interest quite close to your heart. You need to build a trusting relationship with your customer on every level. That's absolutely crucial because you have the contract that says something different from what you are trying to achieve. The end result is there, but how you will go about doing it is somewhat different. If the key stakeholders from the customer side are not aligned with you, then you will have a problem and there's no agility there. You need to provide meaningful iteration cycles, which of course is crucial. And there's a usual question as to how you can give estimates as to how many work days, work hours of the software developer is needed. I don't have any better answer than to tell you it goes with the experience. The more experience you have, the better you are with the estimates. You usually have, when you do your estimate, about some buffer that things may go unexpectedly or that you didn't understand something, and that's how you implement it. There's no better way to do it. Tools that can help. So these are not tools that you can actually use in the software development process. It's the tools and action that can help everyone who is doing business with the government, specifically software products, that can help governments adopt Agile in a better way. First is education. Governments need to assess software projects in a different way than network or infrastructure projects. They can educate themselves, or they can follow the examples of other governments, how other governments are doing. They could and should change the procurement process. There is some solution to that. For instance, in Norway, the Computer Association or the IT department of some legal authority has produced a new contract template for software development projects within the government. In a nutshell, it states like this. You will do the project in Agile way, which means usually you have your certificated people from both ends. And in terms of contract, okay, let's talk about the budget. The budget is, for instance, $1 million. If you can do this project for, let's say, 800K, then we will split the difference between 50-50. The 100K goes to the supplier, the 100K go back to the contractor. These are the sort of things that are ways so the government can find a way around obstacles of being fixed in a contract terms. There is a way to include Agile methodologies or Agile visions within the RFPs, which majority of governments are now embracing. Or one way could be to transform to Agile as being an Agile company. Not just the IT, but some other divisions within the government can become Agile. These are the tools that can help and that they will help, or they are helping in some governments. The world is changing. Now if you go, you can actually type this and go to the official site of the UK government. You will see there is an Agile delivery It's like, I don't know, 50-page document that gives instructions to the government employees who wish to start an RFP in software development. How to do it, what things do they need to include, and how to act in the RFP process, which I think it's cool because it helps whoever does the business with the UK government in terms of software delivery to provide a better project. Or something like this.
World, the only way to keep up is to innovate, adapt, and quickly respond. Governments know that they must reinvent the ways they do business, whether it's through partnerships, leadership techniques, or the kinds of human capital they seek out. However, many governments are still caught up in red tape and bureaucracy. At its core, agility is the ability to adjust and meet changing requirements, to generate and use new ideas while leveraging internal and external knowledge and resources to enhance the mission. When governments are agile, they should be almost invisible to citizens. Services are seamless, tailored to citizen needs, and the population moves about their lives without obstacles. PwC and Canada's Public Policy Forum held a series of roundtables that looked at how government can become more adaptable, flexible, and be resilient in the face of uncertainty. We identified a number of challenges that have made innovation difficult. Many public sector departments say it's hard to balance strategic vision with interim opportunities and immediate pressures. There are other issues that stifle agility too, such as public sector downsizing, aversion to risk, and public backlash on social media. Governments need to make better use of technology and create an environment where taking intelligent risks is rewarded. There's no question that agility and government can go hand in hand. You just need the right tools and strategies to make it happen. Through a series of roundtable sessions and over 45 one-on-one interviews with leaders from education, healthcare, government, and the private sector, we've developed a new report that outlines strategies and advice to help the public sector become more equipped to embrace agility. Read our Agility in Government report to find out more.
Okay, so is it yay or nay for Agile? I guess you're undecided. For us, it's more of a yay than or a nay, and we've been doing this for the past decade. And majority of our projects have been successful. Truth be told, we have some unsuccessful projects, but they're minority, and with each new project we have more of a successful rate, and we learn and grow as we age. Our steps for the future don't necessarily mean that they are your steps for the future if you're considering this agile journey, how they call it. For us, like I told you, we're not a software-only company. We're a system integrator, which means that we have other divisions or businesses that are not agile by any means. So maybe, in order to understand Agile a little bit better, we can do the Agile transformation outside software division. We could work to expand our customers' trust and evolve with the customer ourselves. And crucial part for us is maybe the management level needs to be specifically in sync with you doing Agile. Because if you don't have within your company a management that is truly Agile, then you will have a lot of in-depth problem within your house to deliver these kind of projects. Specifically, if you're doing it in the government, you will have huge problems. With this, I will conclude my presentation. I'm quite happy I didn't put you to sleep, because this is after lunch and you usually have a tendency to doze, myself talking from my experience. I hope that I have given you some great insights, or at least that this was not time wasted for you. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I can provide the answer to the best of my knowledge. If I am unable to answer, I have two of my distinguished colleagues here in the front row who are actually doing that work that I have explained. So, let's see. Questions? How?
So thank you. Thank you for the. Okay. Thank you for the presentation. Do we have a question from the audience? Okay, we have a question there.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm interested to hear how customer reacts on scope not being fixed.
Well, depending on the customer, there are different types of scenarios. Usually, after a development phase, you have the stability phase or the warranty period. In 90% of the time, we deliver all of the use cases within the time frame of the project plus stability period. What we explain is these use cases will be delivered right now because this is what you need. And we will deliver the rest in the stability phase. Stability phase is usually where maintaining comes. And you can have zero work, you can have a lot of work. Usually it's zero work because you produce good quality software. And that's your time frame because you estimated it within that buffer zone and you deliver it. We had situations when the scope was never going to be met like the customer wanted because of the regulations. You have situations where in the midst of the project, this is something that is quite recent, that in the midst of the project the law changed, which resulted in several use cases, several tens of use cases have been changed. They needed to change the process how they work. By law, the government has the right to expand the project. In other words, to give you more money and another project in another time frame to finish those things. To be quite honest, we had some, luckily, smaller customers that were rather unsatisfied with the scope not being there. But not because the quality was lacking. It's just because there's always this guy who thinks his requirement is a must. So we had some dissatisfaction, but usually we try to work it out in the next release or the next contract where you have the maintaining of the software and then you do the release. So at the end, the customer gets all. They don't just get the tire, they get the fancy armchair, but it takes time. The time that we need to have the money, to have the resources, and to have the quality software. That's the reality, I'm afraid.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Another.
Thank you for joining me. I hope you have good sessions and enjoy your day.